Hello guys, so in this video we will be going to see how we can use AWS Lambda Authorizer in API Gateway to authenticate all the APIs. Okay, so basically first let's understand why do we need this, and then after we will go inside the implementation detail. Okay, so the issue is, let's say you host any of the API on API Gateway, then that API is basically exposed to everyone. So that is basically exposed to public. Okay, so anyone with that endpoint can call that API and utilize that, right? But issue is that if it is publicly available and anyone can use it, so any like unwanted people will be using it and will and you have to pay bill for your resources, right? Now you wanted to limit those API uses to some of the people with some specific authentication, right? Okay, so we will go in the detail, but you wanted to basically expose that to some limited number of people. So what basically going to happen is, a client is basically the application, kind of anyone trying to accessing it inside your inside your machine, or inside on their machine basically. So that is client, either it would be web app, Android app, or anything like that, right? That just basically hits the API to API gateway. Before implementation of any authentication mechanism, it basically redirect that request to the resolver, whatever resolver you have. Let's say you have connected AWS Lambda, EC2, ECS, any service, right? That will go directly to the resolver part. But once you have implemented the authentication layer, you have added the authentication, that API gateway receives the request, verify that request with the help of that Lambda authorizer, check that if it is valid or not valid. If Lambda authorizer returns like this request is valid, then it will be going to hit to the like the authorizer basically, right? Sorry, not authorizer, basically API resolver. And if in case this Lambda auth function returns false, like this is not a valid client, in that case that API gateway directly denied, that gives 403, right? So this step is very simple. What we have done, client to API gateway, API gateway to AWS Lambda resolver. But now we have added a security layer in between, that is Lambda auth function, that basically API gateway going to hit it, and it returns true or false based on the if the user is allowed it or not. And based on true or false, if it is false, API gateway returns 403, and if it is true, it will going to return the valid response. Okay, so this is how basically it works. Okay, so now till now what basically I have done, I have created an API, just basically simple REST APIs, and created an like the method and resource on slash user, and basically get method. So slash user kind of hit to the AWS Lambda function of API request handler. And if I show you, this API request handler is basically a very nominal, I will say, Lambda function that just return hello from the Lambda. Okay, so let's say if I try to hit this API, okay, if I hit this API, I will just copy it, come here, paste it. So I would be getting response hello from the Lambda, right? So now this API is publicly exposable. Okay, so let's see if we wanted to enable an authentication or maybe any security layer in this. So what we can do? Okay, so we already discussed, I think, this authorizer part in different video. Like there are two types of authorizer possible. The one is Lambda authorizer and one of the Cognito authorizer. So in this video we will be going to discuss Lambda authorizer, and in the previous video we have already discussed the Cognito authorizer. So if you wanted to implement Cognito authorizer, I will be pasting out that link in the description, you can check that out. But if you wanted to implement Lambda authorizer, we are going to discuss that in this video only. Okay, so now let's first understand why do we use Lambda authorizer in place of Cognito. Okay, so let's say you have hosted an application, and now you wanted to kind of like if login has been implemented by you only, and you are utilizing AWS Cognito to implement login, in that case this Cognito is very easy and very simpler to use. You should definitely use that. But if the application login has been managed by some another third party provider, or maybe any other mechanism, in that scenario you have to use Lambda. Okay, and in that Lambda basically you have to write your custom logic to verify that the receiving token is valid or not, right? So what we are going to do, we will be going to create a new Lambda function, and then after we'll create that. Okay, so first I will go here, I will create a new Lambda function with name authorizer. Okay, and I will be use the Python 3.12 and create function. So I think meanwhile it is creating what. Okay, I think it does not take so much time. Yeah, so this is done. So I think now let's create, yeah, so now let's create an authorizer. So lambda auth. Okay, AP South one I will be going to use authorizer. Yeah, we have this. So if it is asking for if you wanted to invoke lambda within a specific role, so I will not go there. Then after it is asking for lambda event payload, there are two options, token or request. So what it does is basically there are two types of verifying your request. The first one is any specific header has been transferred to the to your lambda function, that this authorizer lambda function. And in case of request, basically in case of token, only a specific header has been transferred. Okay, but if your implementation mechanism is really complicated, you wanted to make it more complicated, in that scenario you can select request, and the complete request will be transferred to your lambda function. Okay, so for now we will select this auth token. Then after it is asking for token source, so let's type authorization token. You can type any random string here, but this point is you have to pass the same header in your API request calls as well. Okay, so I will just type authorization token. Then after it is asking for TTL, so time to live. I think in dev you can usually make it as low as possible, and in production you can I think I will say you can like make that on a larger like time as well, so to kind of save your cost, right? So I think that's done. So now we have created the authorizer. So then after what we have to do, we have to use this authorizer inside the lambda, inside the routes as well, right? So I will go there inside, come inside the method request, edit it, inside the authorization select lambda auth, and then after I think it's done. So you have to save it, then after you have to deploy it, dev deploy. So now we have deployed this API. Okay, so let's say if I try now, I try it. Okay, not okay. So now if I trying it, I will be getting this message as unauthorized. The reason being is I haven't passed any token, right? So we have to pass that token. Okay, so we will come back here on this, but before that we have to modify this authorizer lambda code as well, right? So what we have to do in this lambda authorizer code, we have to receive the header token. That will be the first task. Second task, we will be going to verify that token, if that token is right or wrong, based on your custom mechanism. Okay, whatever it is, I am not sure, like if you are implementing any, let's say SAML based Microsoft AD login, or maybe any other way. Okay, so you have to write your own custom logic to verify that token. As at the third step, if that token is valid or if that token is not valid, there are two decisions, basically there are two possibilities, right? If that token is valid, we have to return a specific policy from this lambda function, and if it is not valid, in that scenario we have to return like a specific policy. Okay, so for that perspective, I have already written a lambda function. So what this lambda function is doing, it is kind of receiving an event and context. So I am just printing it for my, like, just for my clarity or just to understand it. uh, then after I'm just I have written in a command, like we have to verify this token. So for now what I have done, if event like I am accessing authorization token from the event, and if it is equal to allow, I am just allowing it, and for all the other values I am kind of denying it. Then after I am constructing an policy. In that policy, the policy which we have to return, right? So in that policy, basically we have to write principal IDs, policy document. Policy document is a special type of document. So this is just a defined kind of I will say defined sort of policy from the AWS documentation, and we have to use it. Okay, so the only thing which you have to do is you have to change this resource, right? So inside the resource, basically you have to change the reason that you are using it, then after the account ID, and then after the API gateway ID. Okay, so I will go here inside the API gateway. what you can do, you can just come out here and copy this account ID. Okay, so I have already this 4088. Region is AP South 1, so I am in Mumbai. So Mumbai is basically the AP South 1. AP South 1, you can copy the desired regions code basically from here, and then after the API gateway ID. So how will you copy this? So this is the API gateway ID, right? Y9OWL. So Y9OWLX. So basically I have done it. Okay. So this /star is basically kind of we are returning the policy to access all the routes basically. Okay, so if you wanted to limit the access, in that case we can utilize this as well, right? But for now we don't want to make it more complicated, so that's the reason I just make it more simpler, right? So I will go here, then after what I will be going to do, I will just paste it, and then after I will be going to deploy it. Okay, so that is done. So what I will do, I will again hit this. So now I think it is the same. So what we will do, we will come here. Okay, and here we will just type API hit tool online. Just if let's see if do we have, yeah. So here is the online API testing tool. So what we will be going to do, we will just hit this API. Okay, so I have already copied this, right? Not sure why it is taking so much of time to open it. Yeah, so I will be going to just paste this URL, then after I will test it. So test, basically I can select test location as well. So for now I have get 401 unauthorized. So then after what we have to do, we have to pass the custom header. Custom header is basically the in the authorizer, that header we have selected. So we have selected this authorization token as the token source, right? So we will pass this authorization token, and then after allow and test again, then ideally we should get the response, right? So now we are I think request header, so response header. So inside the response body, we have got the response as status as 200 and hello from the Lambda. Let's say if we pass deny here, right? In that scenario, we would not be getting the response, right? In that scenario, we would be getting again 401 unauthorized basically. So the reason being is 403 forbidden. So user is not authorized to access this resource with an explicitly denied. So this is the effect. So what basically you can do, you can implement your custom logic to verify this token. Okay, let's say you are using again AWS Cognito, or you have some custom logic as well. So I am just sharing this file as well in the description. This code is written in the Python, and basically you can utilize this class to verify your Cognito token that you have received in the ID. Okay, in the API gateway request. So that's it for this video. If you have any queries or comment or maybe any feedback for me, do post it on the comment section, and do subscribe to the channel if this helps you. Okay, thank you.